Perik Chavav, Mishnah Ches. Another basic Mishnah which is discussed in detail in Merubah and Bava Kama. But let's go through the first bit of the Mishnah. Oirois ba'al habayis machshava metamaton v'shel abdon ein machshava metamaton. Translation: pieces of leather belonging to a regular ba'al habayis, not a professional tanner, professional leather maker, his machshava can actually be metame the oiris. However, if the oiris belonged to an abdon, somebody who's a professional tanner of leather, who intends to sell them on to somebody else, then ein machshava metamaton, his machshava is not metame them. Right, what sort of oiris are we talking about? Which type of oiris need a machshava? The rule is as follows. If an oir belongs to the group of oiros she'enom avudim, they are just not worked, haven't yet been completely processed, they're not worked leather, then they always need a machshava to be metama them, i.e. the manufacturer has to say, right, I'm stopping here, they're now ready. In the case of oiros avudim, ready-made, fully made pieces of leather, we've said before that as long as they have the shear of hay al hay, then they're royal in medras and do not need machshava. But even in such a case, even in the case of oiros avudim, if that rule that an oir, stum of hay al hay, needs a machshava, is talking about stum pieces of leather. However, if the piece of leather has been destined, it's been specified, miyuchad, to turn it into a kli, already is some sort of kli, like we had the Mishnayos and Mishnah, an or skurtia, or katpulya, or a shechishav alav shetiach. Once an or has a very definite function, then the normal rule applies, which means that you actually have to have the final machshava to say, I have now finished the process, and from now on it can be makabel tumah. So we've now summarized when an oir needs a machshava. So the Mishnah tells you, oiros ba'al habayis, if we're dealing with a piece of leather which the man is going to keep himself, he's a ba'al habayis, he's made this leather, and now he's going to keep it himself, he does not intend to sell it on, then the rule applies, machshava metamaton. His machshava is able to say, that's it, I've done enough, I'm going to leave the oir as it is, and therefore his decision is a decision, and the oir is now ready to be makabel tumah. However, if he is an abdon, and he's made this piece of leather in order to sell on, so that somebody else should take this leather and turn it into shoes, or turn it into a belt, or whatever he wants to turn the leather into, then because this leather is going to be formed into a kli, and we said before that once a leather is formed into a kli, into a different function, it actually needs a machshava to finish it off. Says the Mishnah, the abdon hasn't got the ability to have this machshava, because he is not the final user. He is going to sell it to somebody else who will then make the decision what to do. And even if the abdon decides, right, I'm not going to do any more, he can't make that decision, because that decision is going to be with the person who's going to buy the piece of leather off him. Therefore, in such a case as the Mishnah, ein machshava metamaton, his decision that this is final, I've reached the end of the line, is not a decision, and therefore it's not makabel tumah until the purchaser decides what to do with this piece of leather. And the Mishnah carries on now to a very interesting dinim of ganav and gazlan. Says the Mishnah, shel ganav machshava metamaton. If a ganav takes a piece of leather and he decides, right, I'm now the owner, I'm the new owner, I've ganaved it, I now make a decision to say, this is it, it's finished. Says the Mishnah, the ganav can do that. Machshava metamaton. However, the shel gazlan, if he's a gazlan, he took the thing, he's a robber, he took it by force, ein machshava metamaton, he does not have the power. There's different ways of learning this sugya. I'll try and explain it lahalocha, the way the Gemara comes to the maskana in Merubah, which is based on the view of Rav Yosef, who holds that when a ganav picks up an object, he's not koine it. Rav Yosef holds, even if the original owner, the nignav, is meyayish, that still doesn't confer any bailus on the ganav, because we paskin yush kadi loikoni. However, if we are dealing with a ganav, says the Mishnah, if we've had Yush, although Yush could be Lokoni, however, Yush does a certain process of aziva by the original owner. He begins to lose ownership, although it hasn't yet transferred over completely to the Ganav, because Yush Kadilo Koni. However, the Ganav now has enough ability, enough koyach in this piece of leather to say, right, I am now going to change the usage of this oil, and therefore if he has a machshava to change the usage, and with this change of usage we have now what's called a shinui hashem, so the fact there's been yush before that, see, if there's been no yush, then the ganav has got no ability to change the usage of the kli. It's the yush, the mitzvistiki yush of the nignav, which there now allows the ganav to change the usage, and therefore the combination of the yush and the shinui hashem allows the ganav to actually create a machshava which changes the object and finishes the object off. However, the gazlan, says the Tanakama, there is no yush in the gazlan, because when a person has an item stolen with a geneva, and the man doesn't know who took it, so he's miyayish. But with a gazlan, when a man takes it by force, and therefore the nigzal knows who the gazlan is, he's never miyayish. He thinks, I know who the person is, I'll catch him. If he's never miyayish, then the gazlan is never able to have a chain, to create a shinui Hashem enough to say, this is the machshava that actually finishes the object off. He's got no power at all. Comes along Rabbi Shimon, he says the reverse. Rabbi Shimon Omer says the Mishnah Chiluf Hadvarim, it's exactly the reverse. I agree to the basic principle that you need to have a concept of Yush in order to allow the Ganav or the Gazlan to be able to effect a Shinui Hashem. But it says the other way around. Shel Gazlan Machashava Metamaton. In the case of a Gazlan, when the man took it by force, he's such a strong man, the Nigzal says, why, I'm never going to catch this man. He's not scared of me. He took it by force. Therefore, he is miyayish, and because he's miyayish, although yish kadilo koni, now that he's miyayish, the gazlan can now change the usage, and with the shinui Hashem, he's koine it, and is able to create the new kli, and now it's able to be makabel tumah. But v'shel ganov, the man is never miyayish. The nignav is never miyayish because he thinks, I'll catch that man. He's a sneaky little robber, burglar. I'll catch him. And because he thinks that, he'll never be miyayish. And if he's never miyayish, says the Mishnah, Ein machshavim etamaton, p'nei shelo nisyan shabalim, the ganav never has yish, which would allow the ganav to create the shinui Hashem needed to finish off his kinyan and finish off the gemiras das needed to turn this piece of oil into an oil which is makabel tumah. That was a bit of a